Antisocial behaviour is essentially it's acting in a way that causes nuisance, annoyance, or distress to anyone. So to your neighbours or to anyone who sort of is going about their business in the locality of the property. So it can be, causing noise, nuisance. It could be getting into an argument with your neighbours. It's that sort of thing. So if you wanted to report antisocial behaviour to the trust, you can ring in, so on our number, which is 0300 303 9848. You can report it via our website, and our website has lots of information about what antisocial behaviour is, and you can learn about different things there. Or you can send it in via social media, so we get lots of information via our Facebook pages, that kind of thing. So the trust policy is that we don't look to evict people. So that's the first thing. It's not as simple as just sort of kicking people out. That's essentially our last resort. That we'll take your report, we'll deal with it anonymously, and we'll look to resolve the issue with your neighbour. So in the vast majority of cases, so my team dealt with over 700 cases of antisocial behaviour last year. And in the vast majority of them, we didn't need to go to court, we didn't need to take any legal measures to address it, that we work with people. But obviously, if it's required, and in the most serious of cases, we will utilise our powers under the ASB Crime and Policing Act to potentially take out a court order, so an injunction to stop someone from doing something. Or we can do, and we have done, we will evict people, but that's our last resort. We really want to work with people and with neighbours to ensure that people stay in their homes and we don't add to the housing crisis. So we perfectly understand that people may be nervous about addressing issues with their neighbours. So there's lots of advice on the Trust website about how you can approach your neighbours. You can also speak to the enforcement officer for your area. They may do a bit of mediation between you and your neighbour. And we would also suggest that sometimes just having that conversation between yourselves rather than getting the Trust involved, if it's a lower level issue, that it can lead to yourselves sorting out. But by all means, that if you are struggling and you are nervous about speaking to your neighbour about that issue, is that we will assist you in that, and the officers are highly experienced in dealing with those sort of things. So we're aware that fly tipping is a significant issue on a number of our estates. My team, as well as other teams on the Trust, we do remove it and we do address it where we can prove that people have engaged in fly tipping on the estate. But the Trust doesn't work on its own in a vacuum, that we do work with our partners in local authorities. But it is a problem, and it is something that it's not just for the Trust to address, because there is a huge cost implication. In 2021, there was some fly tipping that occurred on one of our estates that cost up to 28,000 to address. So it is a problem. It is something that we are looking to address. Where it occurs, we advise you to report it in either to the Trust or to the local authority, and we will look to address it where we can. So the Trust policy is that kids playing out in general isn't really antisocial behaviour, but we understand that it can cause distress to people, it can cause annoyance. So we will work with people and families to kind of come to an agreement around things. But in general, kids playing out on the street, as long as they're not causing any nuisance, then it isn't really antisocial behaviour generally. But again, it depends what the kids are doing. If they're smashing bottles, that kind of thing, then that is antisocial behaviour, and that is something that the Trust would look to address. But if you are having issues like that, you can report it into the Trust. We'll look into it, and we'll look to resolve it as the best we can. Sometimes it may just be worth talking to your neighbours about what that issue is. So if you're having to put up with antisocial behaviour is that it's bound to have an impact on your mental health. And the Trust we have support teams here who can help you to engage with mental health services and address those issues. We will look to try and resolve things as quickly as possible so it doesn't have an impact on your mental health. But particularly if it's going through the court process, then it can take an amount of time. And we will look to support people as best they can. If people who are engaged in antisocial behaviour are struggling with their mental health, then we will take that into consideration as well. And we will look to try and support people, direct them into those services to address that problem and to get a longer term solution to someone's mental health crisis, which may be causing an impact on their neighbours. So we appreciate that drugs are a huge issue on many of our estates, and we do want to address it. We work in collaboration with and very closely with local policing teams, and where there is proof and evidence of, for example, drug dealing occurring from one of our properties, is that we will support the police in any action that they take. So there are a number of properties where the police have applied for what's called a closure order, so the property gets shut down for 3 months, and we followed that up to end the tenancy of that individual. Where people are engaged in personal use, that's a bit more of a tricky issue to resolve, and it's something that housing associations and the police are struggling to deal with across the country. We will approach those individuals, and we do look to address that issue directly with them. There are options that we can take which are a bit more serious to address that problem, but as I said, we don't look to evict people as a first result. So we would look to try and support people and direct them into drug and alcohol services, which would address that problem long term for them.